Back in the Gilded Age, right after the Civil War, America was booming with ultra-wealthy moguls. Think railroad giants like Cornelius Vanderbilt, steel titans like Andrew Carnegie, and sugar barons like the Spreckles family, who were swimming in cash but lacked one thing: royal prestige. The U.S. Constitution flat out bans titles of nobility, and even if a foreign power like Britain's Queen knights an American who later wins a seat in Congress, they're expected to ditch the Sir or face scrutiny. This was no accident. The Founding Fathers designed it to safeguard democracy from entrenched privilege, though critics might say moneyed influence snuck in through the back door anyway. Yet, for these self-made tycoons, a fancy title was the ultimate status symbol. Enter the dollar princesses, ambitious daughters whose parents shelled out massive dowries, often millions in today's dollars, to snag marriages with cash-strapped British lords, dukes, and earls. It was a win-win. The Americans got nobility, and the Brits got a financial lifeline. This trend peaked between 1870 and 1914, with over 350 such unions, inspiring everything from Edith Wharton's novels to the hit series Downton Abbey, which echoes these transatlantic alliances in its plot lines. Facts 1. Fast forward to the dynamics at play. While America's old money families like the Astors, John Jacob Astor, started from rags in Europe but built a fur empire to become the nation's first multi-millionaire, snubbed the flashy nouveau riche like the Vanderbilts, who rose from humble Staten Island farmers to Manhattan extravagance with their over-the-top mansions and jewel-encrusted parties. Britain's aristocracy was in freefall. These elite families, once the pinnacle of inherited wealth, saw their fortunes crumble as English agriculture tanked, thanks to cheap U.S. imports flooding the market and rural folks ditching farms for city jobs. Vast estates turned into money pits with decaying manor houses and yachts gathering dust because, remember, true nobles didn't work for a living. Desperate for cash, these titled bachelors became prime targets for American tycoons eager to elevate their family names. Take Consuelo Vanderbilt's 1895 wedding to the Duke of Marlborough, her $2.5 million dowry, about $85 million today, funded Blenheim Palace repairs while she became a duchess. This practice not only reshaped high society but left a lasting legacy. Many modern British peers trace their lineage and solvency back to these dollar-fueled matches. It's a reminder that even in today's world of tech billionaires buying islands or space trips, the quest for elite status never really fades. Kicking off our list of dollar princesses is Consuelo Vanderbilt, the spirited heiress whose family's railroad empire, built by her grandfather Cornelius and expanded by her father William, gave her the kind of wealth that could literally buy a title. In 1895, at just 18, she was pushed into marrying Charles Spencer Churchill, the 9th Duke of Marlborough, a union that traded her massive dowry for his noble status. The catch? Both were head over heels for someone else, Consuelo for a dashing American socialite, and the Duke for a British beauty. The wedding was pure Gilded Age spectacle. On a crisp November day in New York, throngs packed Fifth Avenue to catch a glimpse as Consuelo headed to St. Thomas Episcopal Church. Her ambitious mother, Alva, turned it into the ultimate media frenzy, dishing details to reporters about everything from the gown's intricate golden clasps to the lavish floral arrangements. But behind the glamour, it was heartbreaking. Consuelo later recalled spending her wedding morning in solitary tears, with a footman guarding her door to prevent any interference, even from her governess. Like an automaton, she wrote in her memoir, The Glitter and the Gold, she slipped into her exquisite lace lingerie, silk stockings and shoes, feeling utterly numb as she met her father and bridesmaids. For the Duke, nicknamed Sonny, the marriage meant salvation for his crumbling ancestral home, Blenheim Palace, the sprawling Oxfordshire estate where his cousin Winston Churchill had been born 2 decades earlier. Her dowry funded urgent renovations, preserving what would later become a UNESCO World Heritage Site and a symbol of British heritage. Yet the union was doomed. Consuelo found her husband aloof and arrogant, and both sought comfort in affairs before divorcing in 1906 after a decade of misery. Women like Consuelo were often pawns in their families' social climbs, much like how modern influencers leverage fame for status today. Interestingly, Consuelo turned her pain into purpose post-divorce, becoming a fierce advocate for women's rights and prison reform, even helping establish the first women's suffrage group in Britain. Moving on to our second fact, this transatlantic marriage game was a win-win fix for some deep-seated social woes. In America, the Gilded Age's newly minted millionaires, like those from railroad barons or steel tycoons, were snubbed by the old money elite, who viewed them as vulgar upstarts threatening the nation's moral fabric. The clever workaround? Ship their daughters off to wed British lords, snagging noble titles that unlocked doors to Europe's elite salons. This grounded the families in ancient prestige, letting them bypass American snobbery and pass down a storied legacy, sometimes even royal ties, to future generations.
Across the pond, cash-strapped British aristocrats, reluctant to sully their hands with actual work, eagerly pocketed hefty dowries to revive their fading fortunes. This sparked a booming matchmaking scene, with agents and socialites on both sides brokering deals between heiresses and titled bachelors. While lucrative, it drew sharp criticism as a gilded form of bondage, trapping young women in contractual unions. Think of it like today's elite dating apps or family-arranged mergers in global business dynasties. Strategic alliances over romance. Fun fact: one such broker was Minnie Stevens, an American expat who became London's premier matchmaker, engineering dozens of these pairings in the late 19th century. Our third fact dives into the heartbreak. These brides often wept through their weddings. Gilded Age heiresses had it all: opulent jewels, couture wardrobes, devoted staff, and sometimes true sweethearts. But parental ambition overruled love, forcing them into alliances with unfamiliar British nobles for status upgrades. Take Jennie Jerome, the trailblazing dollar princess whose 1874 whirlwind romance set the trend. After just 3 days of knowing Lord Randolph Churchill, she sported a bold half-sleeve of tattoos when he introduced her to his appalled parents. They preferred a proper English lady, but her staggering dowry, equivalent to over $4 million today, won them over. Their son, none other than Winston Churchill, the World War II Prime Minister whose dual heritage bolstered his transatlantic alliances and political ascent. Many 20th century British icons like Harold Macmillan, another Prime Minister, or even distant ties to Princess Diana, trace roots to these unions. Yet these American brides often face chilly receptions in British high society, echoing modern immigrant spouses navigating cultural clashes. Jennie's tip for resilience? She channeled her outsider energy into philanthropy, founding the Primrose League to boost conservative politics, proving these women weren't just ornaments. Finally, our fourth facts. Culture shock hit hard in the bedroom and beyond. These heiresses left behind cutting-edge American mansions with hot and cold plumbing, insulation against drafts, and central heating. Think the breakers in Newport, a Vanderbilt marvel of modern luxury. But their new British abodes? Drafty, centuries-old piles like drafty castles, where bathing meant servants hauling buckets up endless stairs, turning daily life into drudgery far from the pampered existence they'd imagined. Undeterred, these enterprising women, daughters of innovators, rolled up their sleeves for renovations, installing electricity, modern plumbing, and brighter interiors to banish the gloom. This clashed with Britain's tradition-bound nobility, who sneered at the vulgar changes, often ostracizing the newcomers despite their fortunes. It was a raw deal, forsaking family and familiarity only to face rejection abroad. Still, you can't knock ambitious parents dreaming big for their kids. A real-world echo? Consider how American expats in Europe today blend tech-savvy homes with historic charm, using smart systems to update old estates without losing heritage appeal. And for a silver lining, these upgrades help preserve icons like Blenheim Palace, now thriving tourist spots. Next up in the fascinating world of dollar princesses is Mary Leiter, hailing from Chicago as the daughter of Levi Leiter, the mega-wealthy co-founder of the iconic Field and Leiter department store empire. Think of it as the precursor to Marshall Field's. She made her debut in Washington, D.C.'s high society, and got top-notch private tutoring from a Columbia University professor, plus globe-trotting adventures that honed her elegance and sophistication. These qualities caught the eye of George Curzon, the ambitious British baron who later became Viceroy of India. While Americans couldn't inherit nobility, unless born to titled British parents with dual ties, Mary cleverly married into it. Her father's fortune funded a lavish dowry that not only sealed the deal, but likely greased the wheels for Curzon's rise to Viceroy, a role that made him the British Crown's stand-in ruler over colonial India. As his wife, Mary ascended to vicereine, the pinnacle of prestige for any woman in the empire. Talk about a glow-up from daddy's girl to imperial powerhouse. For our fifth fun fact, back then, handy guidebooks like the transatlantic titled Americans acted as a who's who directory, spotlighting eligible heiresses and cash-strapped nobles on both sides of the pond to spark those lucrative matches. Enterprising matchmakers sailed the Atlantic, brokering deals that aimed for mutual benefit, and ideally a dash of romance. Take Jennie Jerome, who eagerly snagged Lord Randolph Churchill and became Winston Churchill's mom, or the thrilled British lords reveling in those massive dowries. But not all stories were fairy tales. Many women, like Consuelo Vanderbilt, were pushed by pushy parents into miserable unions that left them isolated. On a brighter note, these alliances often bridge cultures, injecting American energy into stuffy British aristocracy. Think how they influence everything from fashion to philanthropy. Today, we see echoes in global power couples like tech billionaires tying the knot with international elites, blending fortunes and influence in our interconnected world. Downton Abbey fans, listen up. This beloved show draws straight from the dollar princess era. Cora Crawley, married to Lord Grantham, embodies the archetype, an Ohio heiress whose multimillionaire dad shelled out a hefty dowry to snag her a spot in British nobility. Her real-life inspiration? Lady Almina, who wed the 5th Earl of Carnarvon at Highclere Castle. Yep, the actual filming location. The Carnarvons were cash-strapped, but loved their extravagant ways, and Almina's fortune, courtesy of her illegitimate ties to banking magnate Alfred de Rothschild, kept the yacht sailing and travels rolling. Though Rothschild spoiled her rotten, her out-of-wedlock status barred her from elite circles, so he bankrolled her noble upgrade. It paid off big time. Her dowry even funded castle restorations, and today the show's massive transatlantic popularity echoes that legacy. Skeptics sniffed at these bought brides, but broke aristocrats eagerly jumped in, advertising themselves like early dating profiles to revive their fortunes. Fun insight, this trend influenced modern media, inspiring stories like Bridgerton, where cross-cultural romances blend wealth and title. Plus, if you're tracing genealogy, sites like Ancestry reveal surprising dollar princess connections in family trees, even in unexpected places like colonial histories. For Fact 6, publications like Titled Americans doubled as glossy success stories, showcasing happy heiress brides while listing cash-hungry British bachelors who'd paid for ads to hawk their titles. Take the Marquis of Winchester's pitch, a 32-year-old Coldstream Guards captain, complete with income, estates, profession, and family perks. Interested moms or daughters could reply directly. No apps needed. Updated annually, it kept the ultra-rich in the loop on Britain's hottest prospects. A fresh tip. These ads foreshadow today's elite matchmaking services, like those for billionaires, where profiles highlight assets over algorithms. Next in our Dollar Princess lineup is Frances Ellen Work, or Fanny to her pals. Born in 1857 New York to self-made tycoon Frank Work, whose $15 million fortune, billions today, came from savvy investments. Deemed a stunning beauty, she had a grandmother, Ellen Strong, who'd mingled with 8 U.S. presidents and pushed for Fanny to eclipse that by entering British high society. She tied the knot with James Boothby Burke Roche, son of the first Baron Fermoy, a lavish spender short on funds until her dowry kicked in. Dad Frank hated the match, cutting her from his will to shield his wealth from the Baron's gambling habits, which torched most of her $2.5 million. Still, silver lining. Their lineage led to granddaughter Princess Diana, the People's Princess, famed for her charity work. As Diana's brother quipped, it was unclear if Roche loved Fanny or her fortune more. Real-world echo. This mirrors modern celebrity unions, like those in Hollywood royalty, where money and status often entwine. Think how Diana's humanitarian legacy inspires global foundations today. Fact 7. Dollar princesses dazzled with over-the-top fashion. Picture Mary Leiter, yep, our earlier Viceroy. Chicago-born dry goods heiress, strutting at King Edward VII's 1902 coronation in a House of Worth gown of gold cloth embroidered with peacock feathers. Still a star exhibit at Kettleston Hall, preserved by England's National Trust and drawing crowds over a century later. Consuelo Vanderbilt's mom hyped her daughter's wedding gown to the press, spilling even on the undergarments, making it the epitome of extravagance. These women spared no expense, flaunting the pinnacle of luxury. Their style influenced modern couture, seen in events like the Met Gala, where heiresses channel that opulence. Our next standout is Winneretta Singer, heiress to the sewing machine empire as the 20th of Isaac Merritt Singer's 24 kids, shuttling between New York, France, and England. At 22, she wed French Prince Louis de Montbellier, but the union got annulled 5 years later. Never consummated, as Winneretta, a lesbian, famously threatened him from atop a wardrobe with an umbrella on their wedding night. She soon married another prince, Edmond de Polignac, who was gay, turning their marriage into a platonic partnership that fueled arts patronage, hosting salons for musicians and creatives. Like many dollar princesses, she chased the title for social clout in a conservative era. This highlights early queer histories in aristocracy, akin to modern figures like Elton John, blending fame, fortune, and advocacy. Bonus, their salons foreshadowed today's cultural hubs, like TED Talks, blending innovation and networking. Fact 8. These dollar princesses turbocharged Britain's aristocracy and economy amid industrial shifts. As American farms and factories undercut Britain's dominance, churning out cheaper food and goods, rural estates faltered, forcing nobles into cities and eroding fortunes. Enter the heiresses. Their dowries, equaling $25 billion today, bailed out spendthrift lords and funded massive renovations, creating jobs for builders, architects, and more. Yet snobby Brits often scorn them as upstarts. Updated angle. This infusion parallels today's global investments, like Middle Eastern funds revitalizing European landmarks. Insight. It spurred transatlantic ties that boosted post-World War II alliances. And if you're into economics, books like The Gilded Age unpack how such wealth transfers shaped modern capitalism. Fact 9. A win-win deal that bridged two worlds back in the Gilded Age. America's newly minted millionaires faced a snobby barrier from the old money elite, who viewed them as flashy upstarts threatening traditional society. The clever fix? Pairing their daughters with cash-strapped British lords. These dollar princesses snagged aristocratic titles, instantly unlocking doors to high society on both sides of the pond. In return, the Brits got massive dowries to fund their fading fortunes without lifting a finger. This sparked a bustling transatlantic matchmaking scene, from high society balls to dedicated agents brokering deals. While lucrative, it drew fire for feeling like a gilded cage, essentially trading women for status. Take Nancy Astor, born Nancy Langhorne in Virginia. She married William Waldorf Astor, ditched her southern twang for a posh vibe, and became Lady Astor. Her clout propelled her into British politics. In 1919, she won a parliamentary seat, making her the second woman ever elected there. Not shabby for an American transplant. For a fresh twist, consider how this echoes today's influencer culture. Think reality stars marrying into old European families for that blue blood boost, like some modern celebs tying the knot with minor royals to elevate their brand. Fact 10. Reviving grand estates with American cash. British nobles weren't just after pocket money, their ancient manners were crumbling under neglect. These dollar princess unions often included dowries earmarked for renovations, preserving historic gems. A prime example, Consuelo Vanderbilt's 1895 marriage to the Duke of Marlborough. Her family's railroad fortune poured into restoring Blenheim Palace, a UNESCO World Heritage Site today, turning it from a leaky relic into a stately showpiece. Fact 11. The dark side, seen as a form of gilded bondage. Not everyone cheered these matches. Critics slammed them as exploitative, with American dads feeling like ATMs funding British playboys' vices, from gambling sprees to yacht escapades. Frances Work defied her father to wed James Roche, Baron Fermoy, becoming Princess Diana's great-grandmother. Her dad, financier Frank Work, fumed in his will. "It's time this international marrying stopped. Our girls are ruining our country by tossing money across the ocean." Those dowries, equivalent to hundreds of millions today, often vanished on luxuries, leaving brides in loveless unions. Ultimately, while seemingly symbiotic, these alliances drained U.S. wealth to artificially prop up Britain's aristocracy, sparking debates on class and autonomy. Though the marriages might have been seen as mutually beneficial ultimately, they were destructive, not only to the individuals who engaged in them, but also to the countries that were involved. Americans were shedding money to prop up Britain's economy. Just for status artificially, there had to be a better way for the daughters of the nouveau riche to be accepted. What are your thoughts about the dollar's princesses? Empowering trailblazers or victims of their era? Drop your takes in the comments.